Tonight on News 5 Live, guilty as charged. After 5 weeks of deliberation, Justice Antoinette Moore convicts William Danny Mason and 4 co-accused men of the decapitation of Pastor Llewellyn Lucas. The Minister of National Security calls the guilty verdict a resounding victory for the Lucas family. A Belize City resident succumbs 9 days after he was beaten to a pulp. Leroy Alexander Lorenzo is charged for the murder of nurse Wendy Dardano in Hopkins. And in Belmopan, and a House committee meets to hear a complaint made against the mace bearer Yellowman Audinette. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
Signing up for Smart's
evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Tuesday, December 3rd. I am Marlene Cuellar. The sensational trial of William Danny Mason and 4 other accused men concluded today in the Belmopan Supreme Court. As the nation waited with bated breath, the verdict from Justice Antoinette Moore was guilty. All 5 of them, on the grounds that the evidence presented by the prosecution, led by DPP Sherilyn Vidal, was irrefutable. Mason, along with Ernest Castillo, Ashton Venegas, and siblings Kieran and Terrence Fernandez, had acted in a joint enterprise to murder Pastor Llewellyn Lucas on July 15th of 2016. While a body was not found, the pastor's head was found by police in a bucket in Mason's vehicle parked at a bar in Belmopan. According to the justice, as a matter of law, the court only needed to know that some harm occurred that led to the pastor's death. Furthermore, it was well established that the pastor's death was not accidental or by his own making. News 5's Isani Caetano has a full coverage of the trial of the century that took place over weeks and ended in a guilty verdict.
Perhaps the most widely covered legal matter before the High Court, the murder trial of William Danny Mason and 4 men, equally accused of the heinous murder of Pastor Llewellyn Lucas, came to an end at midday. The Mason 5, as we will refer to the convicted parties collectively, is now awaiting sentencing after being found guilty of decapitating the Christian minister in July 2016. The verdict succeeded a lengthy session in which Justice Antoinette Moore painstakingly reviewed a number of points highlighted in a summary judgment. In court this morning were friends and family of the deceased clergyman. Noticeably absent were relatives of the suspects, including Melissa Ferguson, wife of William Danny Mason. The chamber was also heavily guarded with conspicuous law enforcement presence in and around the building. When the matter commenced sometime after 10 a.m., Justice Moore informed the court that a full judgment, which is over 100 pages in length, will be released on a later date. In rationalizing her arrival at a decision, the judge raised critical points that were introduced during the trial, including a cause of death for Pastor Lou. Was his death the result of harm, or did he die from other means? In arguing on behalf of his client, Guyanese attorney Dexter Todd cited a case from his home country dating back to 1973, in which it was legally established that determining the cause of death is critical to prosecuting a homicide. That, according to Justice Moore, was peculiar, since it has also been proven in other jurisdictions that an exact cause of death may not be necessary to determine that a victim died of harm. In this case, the Director of Public Prosecutions successfully proved, sans the physical remains, that Lucas succumbed to injuries inflicted to his body. Justice Moore, in reflecting on the proof of guilt, turned to the trove of circumstantial evidence presented by the Crown. The compelling nature of the forensic, electronic, and DNA evidence gathered and used to demonstrate responsibility for Lucas's demise ultimately led to her decision. As an aside, the detailed and thorough work of all those involved in that process, including the scenes of crime technician who swabbed and collected the evidence, was formally acknowledged. Notwithstanding all attempts by the defense to poke holes in the prosecution's argument, they were unable to establish reasonable doubt. Even when taken separately, all 3 strands of evidence were enough to convince the judge that the Mason 5 is responsible for Pastor Lou's beheading. In applying the common law doctrine of joint enterprise, Justice Moore found that William Mason, Ashton Venegas, Ernest Castillo, and siblings Kieran and Terrence Fernandez acted in concert during the commission of the crime. For that, they have been condemned for the crime of murder. Sentencing has been deferred to a later date. Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Caetano.
William Danny Mason and the 4 other convicted men exited the courtroom and entered a police vehicle parked immediately in front of the court. Police were on hand to avert any eventuality. The 5 headed back to prison to await sentencing for the murder conviction. The reaction from the family of the deceased pastor was one of relief as attorneys weighed in on the sensational trial, which lasted several months and saw a change of attorneys and adjournments in mid-course. Here's News 5's Isani Caetano.
It was very hard for our family, especially the way he died. We just happy that it's all over now and we got the justice we know he deserves.
You mentioned that it's been a difficult challenge for the family. What has it been like for you personally, seeing the intense coverage that this has gotten and the fact that your uncle died in such a cruel manner?
It brings a lot of questions because I can't seem to understand why he died the way he did, because he was a really good person.
Tonight, friends and family of Pastor Llewellyn Lucas are breathing a sigh of relief. All 5 men accused of kidnapping and beheading the spiritual advisor back in July 2016 have been found guilty of his murder. After an hour and a half of waiting with bated breath, a decision was rendered.
I thought the verdict would have gone differently for at least 1 or 2 of the accused.
William Danny Mason and 4 others are, by the same token, blameworthy for having committed the grisly slaughter. Attorney Norman Rodriguez represents Ashton Vanegas, one of 4 co-defendants.
He has been found guilty. He will be taken to the Colby Foundation. The judge will decide what his sentence is, and he will decide if he wants me to take this matter to the CCJ, or some other attorney will take it for him, or take him, yeah.
Shouldn't it first go before the Court of Appeal as opposed to the CCJ?
Definitely, you are right. But I make mention of the CCJ because that is the ultimate court. I have no doubt that if it is overturned at the Court of Appeal, then it is highly possible that you will have, it will go further. You'll have further appeals.
In reviewing the evidence presented in the matter, Justice Antoinette Moore is satisfied that the accused men are guilty of the crime for which they are charged. Attorney Brian Neal, following the decision, empathized with Kieran Fernandez, whom he represented by court appointment.
I feel for my client. He has been convicted of a very serious offense. The court has obviously considered all the evidence, and in its view, all 5 defendants have now been found guilty of murder.
Sir, one of the salient points that you and your fellow attorneys defending the accused person suggested that the authorities handled this particular matter poorly, causing contamination. The judge is of a completely different view.
And that is her right. She is the trier of fact and law at this first instance stage, and it is absolutely up to her to determine which facts she accepts and which she rejects. She has, from my understanding of her summary ruling just now, accepted almost all of the prosecution's facts. And that is her right to do.
For Keja Usher, Pastor Lou's niece, justice was certain, despite the long journey it has taken her family to arrive at this conclusion.
I am very happy, and like my mom always says, that God is in control, and we knew that this would have happened. We were convinced that my uncle would have received justice because of the person he was.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
As you heard, the family of the deceased pastor believes that justice has been served more than 3 years after his grisly murder. On the day in which his life was taken, it was established in trial that Pastor Llew had gone to Mason's in Telco Hill residence in Belmopan. Lucas was well known in the community and was a member of the Southern Workers Union in Dangriga. News 5 interviewed him in late January 2014 when he participated in a demonstration led by the Belize National Teachers Union. At the time, Pastor Llew was vocal in his support of the BNTU and agitating for change. Here's what he shared at the time of that interview.
We are standing with the teachers simply because we believe in our children, we believe in our young people, and we're hoping that our future will be better, and now is the time to invest in that. Not next week, next year, and finding excuses won't cut it. Change must come, must start with us.
While the courtroom of Justice Antoinette Moore was at its capacity, outside near the parking lot, a handful of politicians and supporters of the People's United Party gathered in protest. The area representatives and standard bearers were there to clamor for justice in the murder of Pastor Lucas, as well as other victims whose murders remain unsolved. Leading the brief demonstration was Belmopan standard bearer Oscar Mira. Once again, he pointed to a dire need for a forensic laboratory in country, which would aid in solving many cases that have since gone cold.
It's not only for Pastor Lou, but that is the trial that is happening, that has just concluded, and we are hearing the verdict today. But it's justice for all those Belizeans, all those who have been affected. There is no confidence in our justice system. We know that there is less than 50% arrest rate in murder. There's less than 5% conviction rate. It's absolutely ridiculous. We need to fix it. There's a justice system in Belize that is in crisis. Why is it that our conviction rate is so low, our arrest rate is so low? Something has to be done. Belizeans are tired. We want justice, and we want justice to be served today. And we're hoping that when we hear the verdict this morning, that there is justice for Pastor Lou, that there is justice for Mia, there is justice for all those that have been affected in this country. I am no legal expert, but we all know, and we have heard the public opinion, and we have been following the trial, but there must be some scientific evidence that we can rely on. The justice system in Belize unfortunately relies on witnesses, we know that. Why can't we have a forensic lab that now we can not only rely on witnesses, but we can rely on scientific evidence? This is 2019, we're going to 2020. Modern technology is there.
Following the verdict by Justice Moore, the Minister of National Security, John Saldivar, issued a rare statement. During the trial, a U.S. federal agent who was stationed at the U.S. Embassy at the time of the murder was contacted by Mason, who said that he was being framed by Saldivar. That testimony was presented to the court in the form of a written statement. While that did not go far, what is documented is that Mason had invested in the Bandits Football Club, which is owned by the minister. Saldivar's statement reads, quote, "I want to first thank the Almighty for working through his instruments here on earth to secure this clear and resounding victory for the Lucas family and all the friends of Pastor Llewellyn Lucas. Justice has been served. I also want to thank the Director of Public Prosecution and her staff, the investigators of the police department, the scenes of crimes technicians, the witnesses, and all who played a part in securing this guilty verdict. The perpetrators of this heinous crime have been brought to justice. Though the verdict cannot bring back Llewellyn, it is my hope that the family can find some solace in this triumph of our justice system. Let us now work on the way forward to making our country more secure and prosperous." Unquote. In early November, when his name was called out in trial, Saldivar brushed it aside. This is what he said at the time.
I think that narrative has already been done and spent. The entire trial took place, except for a very last moment hearsay that mentioned my name. Absolutely no evidence was brought out in trial against me, and that's where I stand. There is nothing more to say on that issue. The Belizean people have spoken and will speak, because I don't think that in any country or any democracy you can be guilty of something that someone that you know has done, some crime that he has done. So I know the Belizean people are very fair, and that is what they have been, including my colleagues who have been very fair about this issue.
Coming up, 1 week after he was brutally beaten, Edwin Usher succumbs, and the common-law husband of an American nurse in Hopkins is charged for her gruesome murder. Incident, which was captured on surveillance video, occurred on November 23rd around 2 p.m. in front of Lee Zen's store located on Vernon Street. Usher was attacked and rendered unconscious. He sought medical attention but slipped into a coma and became unresponsive until his death. Police are now looking for a suspect in connection with this deadly beatdown. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
Another death was recorded over the weekend in Belize City. 49-year-old Edwin Usher succumbed on Saturday, November 30th at the Carl Hushner Memorial Hospital. He was hospitalized for exactly 1 week, having sustained head and bodily injuries during a vicious beatdown on Vernon Street on November 23rd.
The Tuesday went and operated on him. They couldn't treat him right away because he was under the influence. So the hospital, being safe, couldn't treat him right away. They tried to give him the best service as possible.
Oh.
And what happened, like the Monday when they thought that he could have, the medication could have taken or respond to the medication, they try. I think they took him to the surgery, but he still couldn't wait. During the surgery, he went in a coma, and he took brain dead. And after he took brain dead that whole week, about the Thursday, they come and they tell us he's dead.
Usher reportedly exited a store on Vernon Street when he was attacked by a man. A struggle ensued and an intoxicated Usher was punched several times. Even as he fell to the sidewalk, his attacker jumped and stomped on his head, rendering Usher unconscious. The assailant then escaped towards Youth for the Future Drive. Albert Miller says that the beating chanced his nephew out of his life.
Tommy was around here working with us too, and he left. And after he left from here, he went somewhere around by the Conch Shell Bay. And, I guess coming back from the Conch Shell Bay, he caught in an argument with someone. And he was kind of tipsy drunk too. And the person hit him, knocked him out. He hit his head on the pavement. And after that, someone who saw the incident tell us that the person kick him and stamp him up in his head. I mean to say, that wasn't too cool. So when he came around here, he couldn't even speak. Man get his jaw broke on both sides, his eyes swell, can hardly open, his head bust.
Tommy, as he was affectionately known, was the neighborhood's handyman and messenger. His uncle says that his attacker is from the area as well.
He's a person, all bark and no bite. He's the neighborhood messenger. He's a neighborhood worker. Any one of these people around here that choose to talk about him can tell you. Miss Martha right there can tell you. Everybody around here miss Tommy. He's my nephew. I'm not vouching for him because he's ignorant. Literacy ignorant. He's not violent ignorant. He's literacy ignorant. Many days when he's drinking around here, we tell him, Tommy, stop drink, man. The drinking don't necessary.
Police are looking for a suspect in connection with this incident. Dwayne Moody for News 5.
The common-law husband of an American national has been charged for her murder. 50-year-old Wendy Dardano, a nurse attached to the Hopkins Satellite Clinic, was murdered over the weekend, stabbed to the chest and her body dumped in a garbage bin. Even before the discovery, her common-law husband Leroy Alexander Lorenzo was detained, since it is believed that she was killed inside the lower flat of a concrete building they rented in the village. On Monday, police formally arrested and charged the 28-year-old Corozal resident with the crime of murder. It is not known what led to her violent end, but Dardano had complained to a co-worker about the alleged abuse she was experiencing at the hands of Lorenzo. On Monday, police said that after receiving a call that Dardano could not be found, they went searching and came up on the gruesome find.
Hopkins police were called by a concerned citizen who reported to them that she was calling Wendy Dardon, 50 years American national cell phone, where she was answered by a male person. As a result, she later, or previous to that, she made several calls from earlier in the day, which were again answered by a male person who gave her different accounts as to her whereabouts, which caused her to get suspicious, and as a result she called Hopkins police, who visited Miss Dardon's house in Hopkins village, where upon arrival they encountered her common law husband, and as a result a conversation was held with him, and he was eventually detained. Police then went back to the area shortly thereafter, where a search was conducted on the entire house and yard, where later in a blue plastic drum in front of the yard they discovered the apparent lifeless body of Miss Wendy Dardon inside the barrel.
A close friend of Dardano says that the house was properly cleaned and that police removed a knife and a blood-stained clothing from the house. In the magistrate court in Belize City, Devon Nicholas was sentenced to 2 years behind bars after he was found guilty of firearm offenses. Senior Magistrate Aretha Ford found him guilty on 2 charges: kept firearm without a gun license and kept ammunition without a gun license. During the trial, 2 police officers testified that on the night of October 31st, 2017, while conducting operations on Tabru Street in Belize City, they observed Nicholas as he threw an object inside a yard. The officers took Nicholas to retrieve the object and discovered that it was a .38 revolver with 3 live rounds of ammunition. Nicholas told the court that he had no knowledge of the firearm. He also asked the court to have mercy on him since he recently became a father. Senior Magistrate Ford told him that the minimum sentence for firearm offense is 5 years. However, she will only sentence him to 2 years since he has asked the court for leniency. The House Disciplinary Committee met today in Belmopan to discuss several items, including a police report made by PUP Senator Dr. Louis Sabanet against House Sergeant-at-Arms Mace Bearer Brian Yellowman Audinet. The allegation is that Audinet reportedly insulted Dr. Sabanet on August 16th of this year while inside the National Assembly. Dr. Sabanet reported to police that Yellowman threatened him, assertions that the Mace Bearer rejects completely. The police department saw Sabanet's complaint as a civil matter and did not act on it. The PUP then called on the House Committee to take appropriate actions against Yellowman. After an hour-long meeting, it was decided that the House Speaker Laura Tucker Longsworth, who chairs the committee, would sit down with both men to hash it out.
We have a Mace Bearer position that is a position of integrity. We require people who have a good moral character to be holding that position. I have been the victim of this gentleman holding this position when he's certainly not qualified to hold that position.
So what if the outcome of this hearing is that Mr. Audinet just gets a slap on the wrist?
Well, I will discuss it with my colleagues, with my attorney, and then we will go from there.
How do you feel about that?
Well, if he just gets a slap on the wrist, well, in the first instance, the people are watching this case, and the people want to see if this government is serious about doing things the right way. So it is certainly not in the best interest of the government to entertain this kind of behavior. So in a sense, they're between a rock and a hard place. If they don't do anything, I think the people will take action when elections are called, among the many other things that they're doing. And if they take the opportunity to do something now that is right, well, then they will gain some points for that.
A member of the House committee is Attorney General Michael Parfit. According to Parfit, Dr. Zabaneh failed to submit a written report to the committee, and as such, there was no matter to consider.
We agreed that the Speaker would ask for the presence of both Mr. Zabaneh, Senator Zabaneh, and Yellowman Ardinet, and hopefully the Speaker can sit down, have a conversation with them, let them know, remind them the importance of both their roles, and hopefully we can move past it. He never made a formal complaint to either the House nor the Senate, so we didn't believe that with the lack of a formal complaint that should be an agenda item to be considered. What would you consider if he didn't make a complaint? What would you consider? There's nothing to consider. He has put nothing in writing formally to the committee.
He did put something
in writing. He
in
made a complaint to the police department.
No, he said he made a complaint here at the National Assembly, am I right?
We received, and it was confirmed even by the PUP representative on the committee, that no formal complaint in writing was made to the Speaker nor the President of the Senate.
The People's United Party was represented by Florencio Marin Jr., who agreed that no report was submitted for the committee to consider. Marin Jr., however, says that such issues should be addressed promptly and effectively to uphold the integrity of the chambers.
Just as the Attorney General just said, no, there wasn't a written formal report. There was one made to the police, yes, and it was sent to the Speaker and to the clerk. So what they're asking is that after some heavy debate, there will be a sit-down meeting with Senator Zabaneh and the mace bearer, as well if Senator Zabaneh could write a formal report about it.
How do you feel about that outcome?
Well, I think right now we have to see how that meeting will proceed between the three of them. No? Within the chambers, that's where you see all the back and forth. No? And then you have, if it's a House meeting, you have the Speaker. If it's a Senate, you have the President. Within that confines, I think that is, where there's a referee there. But outside of it, then, clearly there's other ways that has to be addressed.
After the break, PUP parliamentarians protest in Belmopan. A sore point are contracts granted to Aimer Hernandez.
Truly unlimited.
House Sergeant of Arms Brian Yellowman Audinet and Deputy Prime Minister Patrick Farber are at odds. Just recently, Audinet was fired from a position at the National Sports Council for neglect of duties. While the termination letter was signed by Director Ian Jones, those in the UDP circle view this as a political move by Farber to punish Audinet for expressing support for John Saldivar. It is a rift in the party that the UDP is dealing with internally, according to Chairman Alberto August.
It's an internal party matter. That's something I want to discuss on the media. The party has a mechanism to address those matters. So we'll not try to drag those things.
On the surface, however, does it seem as if though Mr. Audinet is being singled out?
We are, as a party, we are facing challenging times. We continue to be a united party. You will have these little skirmishes from time to time. Bottom line is that our party remains united. And as the chairman of the party, I don't think it is my role to add any fire to the fury right now. So I prefer not to. Respectfully, not to comment on that matter.
But has he been spoken to? Because he's been on the media saying some really harsh thing against the deputy party leader.
Well, if I can recall, there's only one instance. I don't think there was any other subsequent outbursts after that the one day. So
has he been reprimanded?
Like I said again, it's an internal party matter. We don't want the media to be running out there to say, well, Yellowman was remanded or reprimanded, whatever. The bottom line is that as a party, we have addressed the matter of that singular outburst that happened there. We are currently, as a party, we are currently facing challenging times. We had one singular outburst on the part of Yellowman with regards to these challenging times that our party is going through. But you will recall, in terms of the opposition PUP, when there was that leadership challenge between Gianni Briceño and Francis Fonseca, you will recall that the opposition within the PUP itself brought out a whole newspaper about Gianni Briceño, and week after week after week they licked that man until that man got sick and eventually decided to resign as the leader of their party. So whatever might have happened between your minds, like I said, it's a singular outburst.
A few members of the People's United Party demonstrated in front of the Prime Minister's office in Belmopan. One of the issues under protest is what is described as bloated contracts being awarded to known UDP supporters and in particular to Emer Hernandez. On Monday, Hernandez received another contract from the government, this latest one for the paving of the coastal road, approximately 36 miles of highway. The value of that contract is over $130 million to a contractor who has been awarded several multi-million-dollar contracts under this Barrow administration. Protesting today was PUP Senator Dr. Louis Sabané.
Our people are totally dissatisfied. In fact, they're outraged by the amount of contracts, by the people who are getting these contracts.
The PUP is outraged.
The PUP, well, I can tell you that. In my constituency, I meet people every day from various political camps who are dissatisfied that the regular person, PUP or UDP, are living and suffering day to day, while a few select cronies get opportunities. Those things don't trickle down to the ordinary man on the street. And in fact, they are disgusted by the idea that this is being done right before elections are coming. Our party has already started to contact the multilaterals to ask them to take a closer look at what is going on. We are pleased that the Taiwanese government is making sure that it is their people who are running that operation with the road to Sartaneja. We believe and we want to call on all of these multilaterals to take a much closer look at what's going on with the funds that are being invested here through all these humongous borrowings that are occurring right now.
When we come back, Disability Week promotes equal opportunities for all, including persons with disabilities.
It's that time once again.
Persons with diverse abilities can be and very often are contributing and valued members of society. This week, activities are being held to highlight that they too should have access to equal opportunities. The Ministry of Education, through the Education Support Unit, is encouraging teachers, parents, and all Belizeans to be more understanding of the challenges faced by persons with disabilities. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
This week is being recognized as Disability Week, and the Ministry of Education, through its Education Support Services Unit, is engaged in a two-day conference at Radisson under the theme, Inclusive Education Embracing Diversity. The idea is to ensure that all people in Belize, including those living with special needs, have equal opportunities for work, play, health, and success. So how can principals promote inclusion at schools?
Principals are at the hem of their institution. Instructional leaders have a mandate to ensure that within their institution there is equity, equality, and relevance. In addition, quality assurance as it pertains to the curriculum. In essence, the role of the school leaders have changed. 21st century leaders have to be visionary individuals with thinking differently. As a leader, one of my mandates would be to advocate for policy, reform in legislation, which is imperative for change. Lobbying for corporate sponsors to retrofit and redesign schools with special accommodations and modifications. Networking to provide professional development for teachers, to bring awareness of differentiation, integration, modify assessments. There are many teachers who believe children get one shot.
But while the schools and teachers have to ensure that lessons taught are inclusive of those students with special needs, parents also have a role to play in their child's development.
The first and most important thing we need to do is to learn. For me, was to learn what type of disability my child has. Because in schools, a lot of teachers are not aware of these types of disabilities. So it was imperative for me to know what type of disability it is, how the teachers can help, and then me, myself, and my wife then goes to the teacher and try to help them out, inform them about the disability, advise them of how to deal with certain issues with the child, explain to them what to expect, and so once they're aware, then life becomes a lot easier for us.
While there has been some progress in getting persons with diverse abilities accepted into the workplace, it has been a challenge. Some businesses are concerned about the liability, while others have made the necessary modifications to accommodate. Among those businesses is Fulltech Systems. Gabriel Alpuche spoke about his experience.
Got responses from about 5 places saying that they would accept me. Those places were Fulltech Systems, BTL, all the big companies, BL, BWS. But majority of the responses were that, yes, I have the knowledge, yes, I have the abilities, but they don't have the amenities and they don't want to take on the liability of dealing with someone with a disability, which I could have understood then. Being at Fulltech Systems, the love, the change, the inclusion that is there, my team, management, has been different. It has shown me that there are people who still care, there are people who still would give you look at the abilities rather than the disabilities.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
The week of activities will culminate with an awareness parade and the annual Special Olympics Games at the Marion Jones Stadium on December 6, 2019. On Monday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a release to say that the Republic of China Taiwan has given Belize support to facilitate international representation. According to the release, the support was provided in the context of an ongoing project for the institutional strengthening of the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of the countries of the Central American Isthmus, which Taiwan has generously funded. The release didn't say how much monies were committed, only to say that the funds will be used to support Belize's external representation. Coming up after the break, we'll tell you about a series of activities to build awareness on building units in the municipalities.
No tricks.
Deputy Prime Minister Patrick Faber represented Belize at a meeting of the Vice Presidents of the Central American Integration System. The meeting, which was held in El Salvador on Monday, is part of SICA's ongoing agenda to discuss regional matters. The leaders in attendance signed a declaration to recognize the importance of having open political discussions that allows for consensus on issues such as poverty, climate change, security, tourism, education, and gender equality, among others. The DPM was accompanied by Margaret Juan, Chargé d'Affaires of the Embassy of Belize in El Salvador. The Ministry of Housing, along with its partners, is hosting workshops with municipal-level building units and stakeholders in building and construction. The workshop is to discuss processes needed to get approval to build in Belize. The first of the forums was held in Dangriga on Monday. Reporter Andrea Polanco tells us more.
The Ministry of Housing is hosting a workshop in each municipality and city called the Building Unit Awareness Series. The workshop started in Dangriga on Monday, where stakeholders from the building and construction sectors engaged with the local building unit in that town.
It is a series of workshops that will focus on actually building awareness on building units. These are the units that have been established at the municipal level that are in charge of building permits, occupancy permits, demolition permits, and they actually mirror the functions of the Central Building Authority. Today we focused on inviting stakeholders from the building and construction community. So we had people from, architects, engineer firms. We also had electricians. We had people from the financial institutions, banks, from the insurance companies, but we also invited panelists, which are other entities that are involved in the permitting process. Before you get a building permit, you have to get clearance from other entities. So today we had participation from the PUC, from the Health Department, from the National Fire Service, and of course, CBA was here to do a presentation on the whole processing.
The Economic Development Council is one of the partners in the Building Unit Awareness Series. Project Officer Alexia Peralta explains the EDC's role.
The productivity of the private sector is really what underpins the overall economic development of a country, which then begs the question as to what are we doing to assist in improving their productivity and to assist the ability for the growth in the private sector. And that's what we're doing here today by being able to facilitate processes, by reducing time, how much processes we do, and as well as cost will help to boost not just the current productivity of the sector, but as well as to promote for there to be additional private sector growth in the industry, in particularly the construction industry, because it's so important to everything we do in the country. There is need for infrastructure.
According to the organizers, the Dangriga workshop showed that stakeholders are knowledgeable about the building processes, but that the building unit at the municipal levels can also serve beyond their towns, which would help to improve access to services and cut down time.
One of the main things here is that stakeholders are understanding what is the process. If you need to get a building permit, what is the process, who you need to go to. So that to begin with is something good. Right? We are hoping that in the future, building units, because as is now, building units cover the municipal jurisdiction, right? Whatever is the town jurisdiction, that's the building unit jurisdiction. Hopefully in the future, we can move forward and say, okay, the building unit will cover beyond the municipal jurisdiction to make this permitting process easier, more accessible, so people don't have to send all your papers to the Central Building Authority in Belize City and can do it at the local level.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
The workshops continue all of this week. And that's the news. Tune in to the station at 8:30 p.m. for Gimme 5. Remember, when your phone rings, don't say hello, say Gimme 5. And don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at News 5, good night.